All right, good morning, everyone. Or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I'm Ann Duggar. I am the Director of Educational Services here at the Catherine McCauley Center, and I'm here to talk to you about curriculum circus. So this is officially a training video for our tutors, but anyone who's watching this is welcome to find out what we do here at the center. Um, Today we're just going to go over all of the different books that we use and why we use them and how we use them. Hopefully this won't be too long, and certainly I'm going to try on the corner of the screen to be somewhat entertaining. So we're going to start with something that sorry, my notes are causing this to move back and forth. Something that we have seen just an uptick in here at the center is the emerging literacy students. So fully a fourth of our students are at this point what we consider to be emerging literacy, which means that they are not literate in any language that they speak. So often people are unable to have get education in their home countries for various reasons. Often the biggest reason, honestly, is gender, but certainly interrupted schooling, war, poverty, any number of reasons why people are not able to go to school. So they come to us, they say, hey, I'm really interested in learning how to become literate, read and write, and I'm going to try it in a language that I've also never spoken. So not only are they learning English, but they're also learning how to read and write and become literate in any language. So we want you to understand when you're teaching these students to just make sure that you put things in a real world context. So adult learners are really interested, and I'm sure you guys all know this when you've been to trainings or, like this, something like this. You're interested in knowing how it's applicable to your life at any given time. So this is where we really want you to understand and to maybe talk about student interests with them. If you need help with a translator, come see us. We do have several different people on staff who speak different languages. So I know this is kind of hard to do. Find out more about your student when they don't speak English at all, but we can certainly help with that. But making sure that you bring in what we would call realia, so things that students can touch, that they can interact with, that you can interact with, and just having those available for our students. And we have a ton of stuff in the office as well, so you're welcome to ask us. Be sure that you go whole, part, whole. So maybe you talk about the word apple, but then you're going to talk about the part of that word, parts of that word. So the A, the P, the L, the E, and then come back to the whole part, the whole word. So with these learners and with, I'm sure a lot of you have helped your children read or who have taught beginning readers and writers. You need to realize that they need to understand that there's a whole thing and then it has parts to it. So that's kind of important stuff. You're going to start with just accommodating their learning style. So maybe take note of how they're learning. Do they respond better to just listening? Do they respond better? I know for myself, if I'm not taking notes, I haven't learned anything. So a lot of people will say, you don't need to take notes. I'm like, oh no, I do. So just things like that, realizing that that's really important. We have what we call a strengths-based approach. So tap into your students' strengths. Realize that it took a lot for them to get here without being able to read and write. They've got a lot of strengths with that. I always go right to they've got problem-solving strengths. They've had to figure out how to navigate a really print-rich environment, especially in the United States. So how did they do that? Certainly interpersonal communication skills are are a strength as well. So just tap into some of those and see if you can't help them learn with those strengths. And of course, always every day, nurture learners' confidence. We want you to be confident while you're teaching, but also just praising and making sure they know, wow, that's a really smart idea you had. I often, if a letter is written incorrectly, I just say, "Oh man, I know how you got there." So just realizing that they're the paths that people go to try and get to learning. So nurturing that confidence is really, really important. And then of course helping learners adapt to school. So if you've never been to school, you don't know how to school. So um, just understanding that they're going to need a routine. All learners like a routine. They like to know what is going to happen next. So just understanding that, and also just really think it's important to talk about learning strategies. And I think it's important to talk about that with pretty much everybody. But then, of course, I'm also like, maybe not the best conversationalist because I want to talk about learning strategies. Um, Being sure that they understand, some of this is work that they have to do, and connecting the work that they're doing with how it's applying, how it applies to their life. Those are really important learning strategies. It takes practice. This absolutely takes practice to learn how to read and write. So just talking through some of that, or if you're not able to communicate through language, but you certainly can model that behavior. So you can chat with your student. Maybe homework is a thing that they would like to do. If not, just reviewing when you get back to it. But just learning how to be in school is an important part of emerging literacy students. So we'll head to the actual books for this. Is The Law Back Way to Reading. It was actually designed for adults specifically. It's an older book. I know a lot of you have said, oh, this is somewhat problematic. There are a few things that are like, what are you talking about? But it does go through the names and the sounds of the letters. It talks about the formation or writing of letters, and it certainly helps students do that. It gives kind of an academic orientation, so that understanding how to be in school, it does provide the basis for that. We want you to realize there is a teacher's guide to this, and we want you to use it as much as you can. Personally, I find the teacher's guide very hard to comprehend, like just the layout of it. So if you're having any problems with that, come to one of the education staff and we can certainly help you. But this book actually does require you to use the teacher's guide for a much better, well-rounded lesson. So understand that. The levels, there are 2 levels that we use. There's level 1 that talks about the letters of the alphabet. It's in groups. So it would be the picture with the girl and the birds. It focuses on the consonants. And then level 2 reinforces the vowel letters and then their short sounds. So usually after level 1, we'll test a student and see if they're ready to move on to a different book. But this, if not, we'll head to the level 2 books. So we've got a few options there. If this is not everybody learns the best in this way. I absolutely understand that. For me, this would be a great book, but not for everybody. So we do have, actually, sorry, there's a workbook that comes along with this. So we want you to also use this. So after every lesson, utilize the workbook as well. So now, if this doesn't work for your student, just let us know. Again, we can talk through this with you and really see if there's a better book for them. We do have the What's Next series of books, which is actually really popular with a lot of our students. It does require a little bit of knowledge of letters and how to write, but it'll go through the vowel sounds of English. It's popular with our students because it's about refugees, and these people in these books look like our students, so that's really important. It's phonemic awareness, so it's awareness, and phonemic is awareness of the common sounds in English. So it really is going to talk about the letter sound relationship for English. So understanding that the P makes a P sound, or L is L. So this is what this really focuses on. You can see a page here from there's 8 of these books. One of them is a lower level, and one of them is a little bit more advanced. So you go through the first 4 and then you'd go to the next 4. Same stories, but in different formats. And the second half is a little bit harder. So this is the first, in the first half. So here you would do, first I would look at all the pictures. We would talk about the pictures. We wouldn't even get into reading until we talked about the pictures first. I believe there is, oh, nope. There's a teacher's guide. There's a series of binders in the office you can come and grab from us. This is another book that you really, really will want to use, the teacher's guide. Mostly because the supplemental materials are outstanding. Our learning and curriculum specialist, Katie Rosenberger, has done a fantastic job of getting those together for you. So you would just need to come and chat with us about that. If there's another option as well, the Talk of the Block books. There are several of these. They go in order. They have 4 themes: family, home, shopping, and health. There is, like you can see here, there's a story at the beginning of every lesson. So you would read these multiple times, and again, bring in that realia if you can, real life items, or come around the center, see what you can find that pertains to these. There are 4 everyday themes, and then there's 4 books on short vowels, and 4 books on, looks like 3 books on long vowels. So there's quite a few of these, and they are super, super popular with a lot of our students. So again, this requires a little bit of knowledge on reading and writing, but not too much. We can kind of supplement as we go with these. So just let us know. Again, everything is really learner centered. So making sure you're paying attention to what your learners are doing and what works best for them is really important. So just please come and talk to us if there's anything you might need, or a different book that you think might work a little bit better. Survival English. This book is actually my favorite. It's a little wackadoo with the pictures are strange. It's a little bit older, but the reason I like this is it really talks about really important subjects in students' lives, survival information necessary for adult living. This book, we usually put anybody who's said on their intake or assessment that they had 4 to 6 years of school, like over many years is even fine. But at this point, they're literate enough and know enough English to really have these, focus in on these conversations. So basic functional language patterns, survival information, and then again, English students who have a small oral vocabulary and a knowledge of the English alphabet. These are, I think we might have, yep. This is a little bit tricky with this book. You need to actually do the conversations. And if you look at the teacher's guide, it has really great activities for each page and each lesson. And it explains really how to use the conversations and the dialogues the best way possible. So I think, and it was funny because I went a year or so using this book and hadn't looked at the teacher's guide, so that was silly. And when I did, I was like, oh, I might have not been using this the best way. So they talk really about, you look at the conversation first. You don't even open the book for the student. You do the conversation with the student, then you put it on the board, and you take out words and you put words in. I mean, it's pretty cool, actually. You want to go over these dialogues and the reading passages multiple times. You want to do, usually what I do is, we're going to read it together. Then you're going to be person A, then I'm going to be person A, and then you're going to be B. Just go back and forth. And you could certainly then say, hey, in this case, this is at the doctor's office, this page. Let's go to your doctor's office and think about what you would want to say in your when you go to the doctor's office. So this is actually, sorry, I forgot to mute my phone. This is actually a really good way to talk about how do you go out into the community and what conversations um, do you need to have. And again, this is real life objects. Discuss when you use this conversation. It absolutely is a good book, and these are good conversations to be able to have. The main series of books, a lot of you are in these. I urge you to watch the side-by-side refresher, or if we offer it again in person, please come to this. If you have been using these books for years, I can tell you that you will learn something that you have not been doing or didn't realize about these books. There are 4 of these books. Levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it really does a good job for people who aren't teachers by trade to incorporate reading, writing, listening, and speaking in every single lesson. So the grammar, if you're a grammarian and a word nerd and you really want to explain explicitly grammar stuff, this actually doesn't do that. You can certainly do that in your lessons, but or if your student is asking about it. But for these books, the grammar is taught through dialogues. It is repeated practice with common structural patterns. Be sure to let your student know that these books also have, each one comes with a CD-ROM, a disc. They could use it at home, the whole book. This is also an e-text, so they could sign in, and we have that sign in for us. They could just sign in, put our password in, and use these books at home. So, or in the language lab for review. There's a lot of really fun activities that they can do on the computer, and we can help with that. Or they could just do that themselves. So be sure to let them know about that. We also want to just help you understand that these books work in tandem. So there's a textbook and a workbook. So you're going to want to use both of those at all times. You really need to use the workbook. And if you go to Stephen's training called Shape the Hour, he's going to talk about ways to utilize the hour that you have. And one of those ways is to never start in the workbook. So you want to review first and then move into the textbook and then the workbook. So again, 2 trainings that you absolutely should be going to, even if you're a long-time tutor. We know that you're wonderful and perfect, but also that perfect can be improved upon. So two trainings, side-by-side refresher and the Shape the Hour. Those should be available to you pretty soon. So after side-by-side, what we'll do is we have another test that our students will take to figure out where to place them in the Challenger series. This is a much more academic series of books. So this again, reading and writing, reasoning skills, comprehension, a little bit of critical thinking. Books 1 through 4 is really emphasize learning to read, but it's that decoding, so sounding out words, vocabulary, comprehension, writing skills, all of those things really are focused on in books 1 through 4. 5 through 8 is reading to learn, so not learning to read, but reading to learn, and just the higher level comprehension and reasoning skills. So one of the things that people really like about these books is it really offers a great way to have some cultural conversations and vocabulary conversations as well. So, and it works equally well for native and non-native English speakers. So the students that we have that are here that come to us to really bone up on their high set skills, or high set used to be the GED or high school equivalency test. So these work really well for any of those students. this is what they look like. So we want to build the academic skills, the phonics, the reading comprehension, even on into expressive or argumentative writing. Um, I think that's a pretty important thing, especially if you've talked to your student and they're saying, "Hey, I really want to go on to get a degree in the United States." This is where these books come in pretty handy. There is a diverse vocabulary. There's a lot of conversation skills, so building that fluency. I think it's really important for everyone to remember. Fluency in any language is really almost impossible to to gain, but advanced proficiency certainly is there and available to students, and these books definitely help with that. There is, this is kind of a weird slide, but there is a workbook that goes with this, and there's a lot more writing, as you can see, and I'm not even sure which book it is. It's lesson 5. There you have it. So there are, the students are really able to practice their writing skills with these. And if you need any help teaching this, because this is not everybody's forte, writing is kind of a talent. So if you, and understanding, especially academic writing. So if you need any help with this, if you want some tips and tricks, please let us know. We're more than happy to do that. We have also citizenship books. So here's the thing we really want you to know: don't fill out the N400 citizenship application. Please don't do that. Just never do it, actually. If you know people who are doing that, tell them to stop doing that. There are free lawyers, there are resources out there who can and will do that. And if they mess up, nobody's out any money. So this is really important. Anything that is not done correctly on this N400, if you're not a lawyer, your student will lose the money for the application money. So be aware of that. The citizenship test itself, if you're not aware, there's 4 parts to it. Speaking, so the examiner asks the questions about personal information from the N400, from that really long application. It's 21 pages. I think almost 10 of them are legalese, like questions about whether or not people are, my favorite is, are you a habitual drunkard? But there's quite a few pages just about past history, things, organizations that people have been a part of. So that's the speaking portion. At any time during that speaking portion, they can ask your student um, what something means. So we found out it's become a little more stringent. So I really recommend getting a copy of the N400. We can print that off for you. We have them around quite a bit. Getting a copy of that, having your student highlight words that they don't know, and doing vocabulary lessons for those words. We also are developing some supplemental materials for that, because that's actually a fairly new thing that we're just finding out. So be aware of that. The M400 is actually pretty important. There's a civics exam, so 100 possible questions. The examiner can ask 10 of them. The student is supposed to, the idea is to get 6 of them right. So if they get first 6 right, they're done. They've passed that part. There's a reading and writing portion. We have the vocabulary list for this, so they don't have to know all of English, but they do not need to know the words that will be used on the reading and the writing portion. So the examinee, which I don't like that word very much, the person who's interviewing, I don't know. Your student will be asked to just read a sentence aloud, and that sentence will be comprised of words from the vocabulary list. So it's not terrible. That list is not super, super long, and a lot of them are pretty easy words that they might already know. So, and then the examiner will speak a sentence, and your student will be asked to write that sentence back. So part of what we really want you guys to understand, and part of what I do when I teach citizenship, a lot of at least once per session, I talk about test anxiety and ways that they can mitigate some of that. So in this case, with it sounds really scary to have something dictated to you and then have to write it out. So they can say, hey, slow down. Can you repeat that? They can do all of that. This is not an interview where people are trying to help students fail. That's just not the thing. So being aware of just anxiety reducing measures is a really smart move. The cool thing about these citizenship books, so we have them in two different at two different levels. So this level, I think the one with Abraham Lincoln, the bottom has the bottom of every page, or every other page has a question, one of the 100 questions. They're all in gray at the bottom. Each page has something about comprehension, about speaking, about writing. There are like I said, two levels of this book. The other picture here is the literacy skills level. So they're really focusing on being able to write and read. And then again, the more advanced one is the one with Abraham Lincoln. I do want to say our citizenship class that normally runs on Saturdays from 10:30 to noon, and has for a while, and will probably continue to do so. We created that. It's a 6-month course. Students can drop in and drop out as they need or want. But that one really talks about the history and civic engagement. So the 100 questions, you can teach it, like just teach it to the test, just memorize those and be done with it. But we really encourage you to have your students come to the citizenship class, or ask us about it, and you can use the curriculum for that, because many of our students are facing issues within the United States that they didn't know about, and they're walking into often racial issues that they didn't realize. They're walking into a history that they don't know about. So giving them that knowledge and then talking about, when you go to vote, these are some issues that might be of interest to you, or find those issues that are of interest to you, and here's some of the background for it. We think is really, really important, and it's just culturally, it's something we want to make sure our students understand. So one of the cool things about the more advanced book is it has, at the end of this, at the end of every chapter of the book, is a test hint. So they are crucial. You really need to go over these. So this one talks about the reading and writing test. They don't have to, oh yeah. Okay, I'm reading this like, what is that? Understand, if it's the writing portion, the person will give your student a piece of paper with whatever, a question on it. They don't actually have to answer that. They just have to rewrite the question. So things like this, I think these test hints are really, really helpful. One of them I know is just listening for keywords. We have in that 100 questions, there's a couple of them where the answer is like Washington or Washington, D.C. So listening for those keywords in those questions is really, actually is really helpful. So just reassuring your students, they can ask for time to think, they can ask for questions to be repeated. That's a big part, again, of what we do when we teach citizenship, that this is not, it is scary in that it's a lot of money, but also realizing that they can take parts of the test over. So if they fail the reading portion, they're given another date to come back, and they're given some time to study on that portion particularly, or if they do that with 100 questions or whatever. So we've had students fail a portion. I think you can do it up to 3 times. So there is a little leeway here, and it's not as terrifying as it seems. So just making sure students know that is really, really important. Your assignment for this, I know I kind of ran through it. It's definitely a little different without an audience, guys. That's the truth. we would really like to know what you found helpful in teaching any of these books, if you're teaching them, or is there anything that you think would be helpful when you're teaching these books? And then is there a particular book that you think you'd like to try? If not, it's okay. You can let us know, hey, I'm really happy with the survival English. I'm just going to stick with that. But we do want to know that you watched this video and are thinking about these things. So just email us education@cmccr.org. And I'm going to let you know, I'm going to have to do a little fiddling with the computer. So you might just see my face staring kind of confusedly, but that's what that is. And then I'm going to sign off. But thank you so much for listening in today. It's, again, like I said, I was hoping it wouldn't take too long. If you have any questions, let us know. Be sure to finish this little assignment. Doesn't have to be a long thing, but we do actually want your input as well. It's important for us to understand where you're at and what you're comfortable with as well. So have a good day. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I'm gonna, oh, there's my whole face. I'm gonna end this meeting. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.